And a very good Saturday morning. We're coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina, right here in the Eastern time zone. Whatever time zone you happen to be in, welcome to the show. Listening to us on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as most of your major podcast platforms, such as iHeartRadio. We're also on Amazon Radio. We're also on Spotify, Spreaker, and others as well. So there are many that we're on. Easy to find, no problem. But we do come live on Saturdays and Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And of course, a lot going on this weekend. You got the Preakness coming up. We got some baseball games on tap for today as well. So we're going to talk about that as well. We have 3 games on tap as far as which direction the line movement is going and in which direction the pros are going in them as well. Those 3 games for today are the Cubs against the Tigers, the Giants against the Pirates, and Cleveland against Seattle. Those are the 3 games we're going to take a closer look at, kind of give you an idea as to what's going on in those situations. Well, anyway, thank you for listening. And like I said, welcome into the sports wagering zone. Very simple. We're going to be talking about baseball. We got to talk about some horse racing going on today. And of course, if you've listened to the show before, you kind of have a pretty good idea as how I feel about horse racing when it comes down to Derby, Preakness, the Belmont Stakes. Not a big fan of that. And most of the professional bettors are not in on it as well. So we're going to be covering that as well. But of course, as usual, we're going to be talking about what happened yesterday in the world of sports as far as betting is concerned just as well. So just to give you an idea, let's take a look at yesterday's cards and see what happened as far as the National Hockey League, the NBA, and Major League Baseball is concerned. Kind of give you an idea as to what's happening with the underdogs, with the favorites, how well they're doing, or whatever it is that you keep records on. Because again, we're strictly analytical here in the sports wagering zone, trying to take that emotion, trying to take those type of things away from betting, because that's the type of stuff that will definitely get you into trouble. We're in an analytical world now. Everything is numbers. You have to understand something. Take a look at the insurance industry to give you an idea. As far as the insurance industry is concerned, they make a ton of money, and a lot of it has to do with projecting how long you and I are going to live. It all has to do with numbers. Sure, some people are not going to live to be 76, but there are people living beyond 76 who continue to make payments into their plans. So that kind of gives you an idea as to how analytical things have been going on, even though you may not have realized it all through the many years as well. But now, very big in sports. We are big into it. We'll be talking about that as well. So let's take a look at yesterday's events in the National Hockey League. The Jets, as a plus 135 on the money line, upset the Maple Leafs 4-2. The only game of the National Hockey League on the schedule, with the Stanley Cup playoffs starting off on Saturday. The game went over the total of 5.5 goals, but the unders, they still hold a slim lead at 50.6%. Now, as far as first period, they stayed under and they lead 438 to 424, which is almost at 51%. Meanwhile, over in the NBA, the favorites, they went 7-1 straight up, but as usual, 5-3 against the spread, with the lone upset by the Rockets as a +7 on numbers against the Clippers. Again, the Kings are 3-point dogs against the Grizzlies, and the Raptors 15-point dogs against the Mavericks. Those last 2 games, they covered despite the fact that they did lose the game. So you had the Rockets, the Kings, and the Raptors all winning, covering yesterday as far as betting is concerned. The Rockets won. Okay, the Kings and the Raptors, they didn't win, but they did cover. The favorites still lead, however. They're at 50.9%, which is almost 51. The over-under split yesterday, 4-4. The overs still lead at 50.9%. 1.3%. Meanwhile, over in Major League Baseball, the favorites, they went 10-5, with the Reds and the Rockies closing as a pick'em. You had upsets by the Royals in the first game against the White Sox, the Mariners, the Pirates, the Braves, and the Phillies. The favorites still lead 311 to 253 straight up, but still only at 55.1%. The overs are 9-7, but the unders still lead 51.3%. So that's the story. Major League Baseball, NBA, National Hockey League, that's what's going on in those situations. So we're going to take our first break. And as usual, if you've listened to the show before, you'll understand that we do take 3 breaks within the program. And of course, they're each of about a minute duration, so it's not much time. Just enough time to take a quick sip of water or whatever and get ready to get right back into action. So we're going to take a break. And like I said, we will be back into the sports wagering zone. And we're going to be talking about the 3 baseball games that are on tap for today. Kind of let you know where the pros are going as far as they're concerned. We'll be back in the zone in 1 minute. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. Chris Pardo, okay, right here in Charlotte, North Carolina, coming to you live on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. Before we get to the 3 games on tap for tonight, yesterday, Friday, marked a really big day in the history of legalized sports betting in America. The 3-year anniversary of PASPA being overturned. Widespread legalization of sports betting was once an unachievable pipe dream. I've gone through it. We've been doing this show for over 5 years, almost 6 years now. We were doing it even before legalized betting was adopted in the States. There was always being able to go offshore to bet if you wanted to. Of course, you could also bet with the guy down the block if you wanted to as well. But in just 3 years, it's become a really widely accepted reality. All the while, the sports betting industry has exploded like wildfire. Just to give you an idea, 5-6 years ago when we first started the show, we couldn't get anybody to cover the show. We got maybe 1 or 2 stations that kind of gave in a little bit because gambling, betting, that was kind of, that's terrible. Our listeners will be upset if we talked about that. But now it's changed, okay? Totally changed, widely accepted throughout the country. Now, of course, before the Supreme Court overturned the federal ban on sports betting back in 2018, your only options as a bettor, if you lived in the States, was either fly to Vegas, take the train to Vegas, wherever you want to get there, or you bet through that global sports book, or you bet with the local guy down the block legally. Now we have 21 states live legal sports betting. You got 6 more that have legalized it, and they're not up and running, but they will be, and they probably will be by the time the NFL season begins, because that's the big moneymaker as far as betting is concerned. Now, since the repeal back in 2018, $4.6 billion, that's with a B, $4.6 billion has been wagered on sports legally in the United States, okay? On the day it was overturned, the number was 522 on one day. Once the news came out and the first states opened up, that was Delaware, and then New Jersey came the following day, $522 million was bet. Now, here are the 5 top states as far as legalized betting. Just to give you an idea of how much they've handled since the opening. Nevada, $14.5 billion. That's again with a B. New Jersey, $14.4 billion. Pennsylvania, $6.8 billion. Illinois, $3.6 billion. Indiana, $3.4 billion. So you see how successful this whole situation has been once it got legalized. And of course, a lot of that money is being used in a good way towards education or whatever, road construction, whatever each state has allocated the funds to go in certain directions. But more importantly than that, the fact that you as a citizen of the United States or a visitor to the United States, if you wanted to make a bet, you can legally do it now without hiding, without not talking about it, being afraid, like living in the shadows, as they say, is now legal. You can do it. We have 27 states that have passed legislation. We have 23 states that are working up and down right now. So that's a good story. That's the whole thing. 3-year anniversary starting. That was yesterday. So today we're starting the 4th year. So let's start with baseball. Okay. We're in the baseball season. 3 games on tap for tonight. Trying to take a look and see how the pros are going and which way the analytics are going as well. The 4 o'clock game, you have the Chicago Cubs, 18-19, playing the Tigers, who are 13-25. Now, the Cubs, they took last night's interleague game 4-2. They were minus 145 as road favorites in that game. In the win of that game, snapped a 3-game losing streak for the Cubs, and it also ended a 4-game winning streak for Detroit. So one winning streak came to an end, and one losing streak came to an end, all in one game. Now, in this afternoon's rematch, the Cubs have Trevor Williams pitching. He's 2-2 with a 5.81 ERA. The Tigers come back with their veteran righty, Jose Urena. He's 1-4 with a 3.6 ERA. As we look at the line, it opened with the Cubs, a minus 120 road favorite, and the Tigers as a plus 110 home dog. Now, the pro money in this situation seems to be siding with the Cubs. Drove Chicago closer to minus 130, up from 120. The Cubs have value as an interleague team, and they have a line movement in their favor. Teams that fit this category are 58% so far this season. Now, Chicago's 9-7 as a favorite this season as well. The Tigers are 11-22 as a dog. The Cubs are -5 in run differential. The Tigers are -66, which just happens to be the worst in Major League Baseball. We're also seeing some under-liability in this game as well. The total in this game is 9. The under is juiced up to -120. When you see that, it means that it may possibly drop down to 8.5 to kind of make up for it. Now, the forecast at Comerica Park calls for temperatures in the high 60s, 5 to 10 mile per hour winds that are going to be blowing in from right field. So both teams have been profitable to the under this season so far. Chicago is 20-16, Detroit 22-16 to the under. Okay, so that's the story on the first game we're talking about, the Tigers and the Cubs, the pros in this particular game on the Chicago Cubs. 6:30, San Francisco Giants, 23-15, playing the Pittsburgh Pirates, 16-22. Now, these are non-divisional teams. They split the first 2 games of the 4-game series. The Giants won the opener 3-1. In that game, they were -150 road favorites. The Pirates won 3-2 yesterday, being a plus 170 as home dogs. Now, in tonight's rematch, the Giants come out with Johnny Cueto. He's 2-1 with a 3.52 ERA. The Pirates come back with their lefty, Tyler Anderson. He's 3-3 on the season with a 3.05 ERA. Now, the line opened with San Francisco, a minus 140 road favorite, and the Pirates a plus 130 home dog. Now, the public says San Francisco is the far better team and has to bounce back and win tonight after losing last night. But, despite all this action going in that direction, we've seen the Giants' number drop from being a minus 140 to the minus 130 on the money line. And usually what this means is that we call it a sharp reverse line movement, buying low on the Pirates at plus 130, and that dropped down to plus 120 once they came in and started betting on the Pirates. Pittsburgh has value. They're a contrarian dog. They're coming off of the win. Also, home dogs with 10 cents or more movement in their favor are at 55% so far this season. So between Pittsburgh and Frisco, the pros are on the underdog in this particular game, the Pittsburgh Pirates. We have one more game to look at, and that's the Cleveland Indians against the Seattle Mariners. We're going to take our second break, and when we come back, that's going to be the first thing we're going to take a look at as far as that's concerned. So just a reminder, we'll be back into the sports wagering zone right after this. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. We're coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina, right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as coming on most of your major podcast platforms as well, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Google Podcasts. Okay, there we are. So anyway, that's the story. Let's get back to baseball. Once again, just to recap two of the games we talked about before the break. Detroit Tigers and the Chicago Cubs in that particular game. The pros are on the Cubbies at 6 p.m. We got the 6:30, actually, somewhere in that area. Of course, that's Eastern time. San Francisco Giants and the Pittsburgh Pirates in that particular game. The pros are on the underdog, the Pirates. The final game we're looking at is the evening game around 9 o'clock Eastern time. Cleveland Indians, 21-15 out in Seattle, playing the Mariners, who are 19-20. Now, after Cleveland took the opener yesterday 4-2, they were minus 115 on the money line as road favorites. Pretty much of a bargain there. The Mariners bounced back with a 7-3 win last night, cashing in as plus 105 on the home dogs as well as being on the money line. 105 home dogs, money line. The win ended a 5-game losing streak for Seattle. It also ended a 4-game winning streak for Cleveland. So once again, in one game, you had a team whose losing streak came to an end, and whose winning streak came to an end, okay? And for Cleveland in tonight's rematch, the Indians have come back with Tristan McKenzie. He's 1-1, 4.9 on the ERA. And the Mariners come back with Justice Sheffield, 2-3 with a 4.9 ERA. Looking at the line, it opened with Cleveland as a minus 120 road favorite. Seattle at home is a plus 110 home dog. Now, the public is all over Cleveland, laying that short price. You know, you got a minus 120. That's not all that bad because just by looking at it, they're probably the better team. However, we've seen Cleveland kind of drip down a little bit. Came down from minus 120 down to minus 115 on the money line. Now, what this means is that the pro money is going on the Mariners as a short home dog, dropping that number from being a plus 110 to a plus 105 on the money line. Now, essentially, if you look at it, the game is trending closer to a pick'em. Now, despite this action and its lopsided favoring Cleveland, it still looks like it may turn out to be a pick'em game. Seattle, however, in this game, they have value. They're a contrarian dog that's coming off a win and a dog with a line move that's in their favor. So analytically, Seattle is the team to play as well. Cleveland is 12-6 against righties, but they're just 8-8 against lefties so far this season. So in this game, Cleveland against Seattle, the pros are on the underdog in this game. And again, it may drift down to being a pick'em, but either way, the pros are on the Seattle Mariners. So once again, to recap the three games for today, in the first game, between the Cubs and the Tigers, the pros are on the Cubs. Between the Giants and the Pirates, the pros are on the Pirates. And Cleveland and Seattle, they're on Seattle in this game. And now taking a quick look at how this little method system, whatever you want to call it, has been working so far this season. If you're a new listener, and sometimes we have new listeners coming in on the weekend as opposed during the weekday, okay? Or perhaps you don't listen during the day, you only listen on the weekend, which is quite all right, as long as you're listening one of the days of the week anyway. The whole story is this. We have been charting and talking about games and teams that have been selected by the pros and in which direction they are betting their money, which is not a bad way to approach this whole situation. So far this season, just to give you an idea, yesterday we had 3 plays. Philadelphia against the Jays. That particular game we lost because we had the Jays. The Rangers and the Astros. We had the Astros, so that's a win. Cards against the Padres. We had the Padres. That was a win. So we had 3 plays yesterday, 2 winners and 1 loser. Now, of course, the day before, we had 3 plays, 1 winner and 2 losers. And then so it goes on and on and on. We've never really had much of a losing day. We've had days we lost 3 games, but I think only twice in the entire season so far. So over the whole season, we've had 119 plays. Out of those, 66 won, 52 lost. That gives you a percentage of 55.4% in baseball. Remember, 52.3, 52.4, that is the break-even point as far as betting is concerned. So at that rate, it's doing pretty good. Okay, so now let's turn our attention to something else. I talked about this the other day, and I think this is kind of important. If you listened to us yesterday, you're just going to hear this for the second time, and you can't hear it enough times because, around this time of year, horse racing, as we know it, usually gets a boost in publicity, okay? Everybody tries to figure out the Kentucky Derby winner, who's going to win the Triple Crown. Everybody talks about it. This is the narrative that's going on for the Brickness that's on for today, okay? And the narrative changed last Sunday because Bob Baffert's horse, Medina Spirit, tested positive for the anti-inflammatory drug. So there's kind of controversy going on there. The backlash in what happened, and as the news came out, was really fairly strong questioning Baffert as being the greatest trainer of all time. He's got 7 Derby wins, but did he win him as a cheater? That's the whole thing that's coming out. The integrity of horse racing in general, I know that for many years, has been called into question. I was a horse owner. I own the horse. I know what it's like. Okay. It's been called into question. A lot of criticism. The drug testing protocols, they've been totally criticized by the industry itself. Now, some say any violation calls for suspension, while others, they kind of say, the rules are so strict. They're too strong. They're too hard to follow. Now, once again, I said this yesterday. I'm not a pharmacist. I'm not a drugstore. I'm not a lawyer. So I'm content to let everything run its own course, okay? I'm a gambler. I like to bet. And sports betting is my life. That's my show. That's what I do for a living. So my focus is on how this affects betting, the implications it has on wagering, on betting. And of course, the biggest complaints so far, they've been coming from those people that had to run rope horse Mandaloun in the Kentucky Derby. Hey, I hear from them all the time. They feel they should be paid. Now, I spent a lot of time this past week telling everybody that if you did, you're out of luck because the results have become official as far as wagering is concerned, okay? It became official the day of the race right afterwards, and that's not going to change. Even if the Kentucky Commission disqualifies Medina Spirit and makes Mandaloun the winner, the only thing that's going to happen is the purse money that would have gone to Medina Spirit will not go to Mandaloun. Meanwhile, if you bet on them, it's just one of those things. And also, a lot of complaints would come from primarily the new bettors, the novice bettors, especially people who only bet horse racing at Derby time. Longtime gamblers, we know that this happens in other sports when championships are vacated after the fact. It's always been that way. The bookies pay out the winning tickets on any given day or after the season is over, and they're not about to also pay those who had a rightful winner in its place, especially since they're not able to recoup the money from the beginning. So some people are arguing that this needs to change. Now, to a certain degree, I kind of agree with it. It's a noble concept, and maybe that's going to happen someday when all bets are done electronically so we can control those type of things. They can take and give away money, okay, from people, what they bet, have a time limit as to how long before you can do it, and they can be reversed easily. But that's the world we live in now. The world we live in now is once it's official, if you bet another horse that comes in and wins, and then the horse that won gets disqualified, unless you're there for that race. In other words, if it happens during the race and they disqualify the horse because of bumping or some reason of that nature, yes, the horse is taken down because it's not official yet. Then if you do have the second place horse, you collect your money, okay? And the most frustrating thing that I've been hearing also is that people who say we should boycott horse racing because all cheating is unfair gambling going on. And I understand their frustration, but I don't believe any of us are going to do that. We're not going to give up on anything. And I saw this from experience. We've heard similar boycotts discussed in other sports as well. Did anyone stop betting in the NFL, because of Spygate or Deflategate? What about all those steroid scandals in baseball? How about the Astros cheating scandal? College sports, hey, they've had a ton of game-fixing cases. And how about the Tim Donaghy scandal in the NBA as well, okay? They've all been touched. And let's not even get into all the controversial judging decisions, for instance, in boxing or the MMA. Yet we all can't wait to make the next best bet that we can get. So it doesn't really change. I know it stinks when these things happen, but despite there being a lot of these examples, there's still a small percentage of all the games being played, very small. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they say. After all the dust has settled, we'll still be here handicapping the games, posting our plays, okay? We might need to factor which trainers are cheating into our handicapping situations, but how is that different from any other sport? Or any batters using steroids? Or looking at pitchers scuffing the ball if they're going to be pitching that day? Are there college football and basketball coaches that are bending the rules? Hey, it's going on all over the place. We do our best. We handicap to the best of our ability, and we kind of trust that we're going to be on the right side more times than not. Because even when things kind of go bonkers, let's say, and it goes in another direction, hey, you may be on that particular team and be a winner and not a loser in that thing. So just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. Forget about it. Relax. Settle down. It happens all the time. Next week, you're going to hear something probably maybe about baseball or something about football or something about any other sport that's out there. You're watching a football game. You don't like the decision that was made. You think that was a blatant missed call. Or in baseball, it happens. Sometimes you're on one side of it, and sometimes you're on the other side of it. Okay, so it just all depends. You got to hope you're on the right side all the time. So that's the story. That's our break. When we come back, we're going to take a quick look and try to preview some things about the National Hockey League championships coming up. I don't know much about hockey. I'm not a big hockey maven, so I have to defer to my friend Larry Brooks over at the New York Post, kind of give you an idea as to what his thoughts are as far as the National Hockey League playoffs are coming up. So let's get that final break out of the way, and we'll be back right after this. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. Thank you very much for listening. Coming to you live on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. Oh, so we're going to take a little look at hockey. Like I said before the commercial, not much of a hockey fan. I'm not that involved in it. So I always have to defer to the real pros, the guys that know what they're talking about when it comes to hockey. And one of the best guys in that category is Larry Brooks. Larry works and writes for the New York Post in New York City. So these are more or less his comments, and that's what I'm going to be talking about right now. Because, there are, of course, no conference games this season. So the 4 divisional winners who come out after the first 2 rounds will be reseeded by the points in the semifinals. Now, that should become a standard way of doing it, because reseeds after the first round should return to being the norm. Reseeds for the final 4, should be adopted permanently to produce a cup final featuring the last and best 2 teams standing. If players refuse to touch their conference championship trophies out of a sense of superstition, then why on earth even award them, okay? But enough dallying around. Now, looking into the season, we're first-place teams that establish divisional superiority through 56 games will have to do it again in a best-of-7 series. By the way, through the quarter century of original 6 playoffs, when the opening round illogically matched the first and third seeds and the second and the fourth place clubs, the top two teams always advance to the final 16 times, 16 out of 25 years. Okay. So let's take a look at how Larry likes the situation coming up. Vegas. He says Vegas had Marc-Andre Fleury. They added Robin Lehner. They had Gerard Gallant behind the bench. They fired him to add Pete DeBoer. They had a collection of forwards who could play both ways. They traded for Mark Stone. They had a strong defensive core. They signed Alex Pietrangelo. It also is always on to the next for the Golden Knights. There's only one next for the franchise to beat the Flyers' record of fastest expansion club to the Cup. That's the only thing they need to break. Philly has won it 7 years in their total existence. So that's the one thing that the Golden Knights still strive for. That's the next thing the franchise is looking forward to. Colorado, look at them. They took the President's Trophy via the regulation win tiebreaker over Vegas, even with one less overall victory. The award less meaningful than the reward of avoiding the Wild in the first round. So they won't be playing them, and instead they draw the Blues. The Avalanche have an abundance of firepower without sacrificing anything on the defensive end. They'll be reliant on Philip Grubauer, who has a cool 13-7 career playoff mark as the goalie. Meanwhile, Carolina, they've arrived 4 years after breaking a 9-year playoff drought, 2 years after last winning a playoff round. Is this the outcome the Rangers fans would consider a successful rebuild? Do you believe in Peter Mrazek? And do you care that the Candy Canes were hammered twice by their first-round foe Nashville in the final 2 games of the season? That's Carolina. Now, Toronto, they haven't won a playoff round since 2004. How's that for a rebuild? Okay. And there would be no excuse for the Maple Leafs to fail to advance past Montreal in their first postseason showdown since 1979. The team has plenty of firepower, but is the Freddie Anderson, Jack Campbell goaltending duo, are they capable of producing even 8 victories, let alone 16? Okay. Now, if the Rangers had the worst experience under the bubble last August, Pittsburgh was right behind. The Penguins being ousted by Carey Price and the inferior Canadiens in the qualifiers. But Crosby is on another one of his rides. He's on a team that is nearing full health and is much greater than the sum of his parts. So even if Steven Stamkos, Nikita Khrushchev, and Victor Hedman are at full strength, that changes everything for Tampa Bay, doesn't it? Right? Even as we wait to find out whether the Lightning Panthers will have the first-round juice of historical geographical rivals like the Rangers and the Islanders and the Habs and the Nordiques. For most of the second half, Boston was just a step or two ahead of the Rangers. And now here are the Bruins, suddenly seeming as formidable as ever with Taylor Hall's deadline acquisition, maybe a transformative move. So let's take a look at some of the teams. And once again, that's from Larry Brooks at the Post. I'd rather defer to somebody that knows what they're talking about as opposed to someone like myself who, I like sports. I'm primarily a football and baseball fan. I like college basketball as well. And as far as horse racing is concerned, we talked about this when the Derby came about. Just can't understand why people want to bet on these races. Okay, you got the best horses around. They're going against each other. It's hard to handicap when you have 10 good horses in a race. It's not like betting a $10,000 claiming race where some horses haven't run for 2 weeks or haven't run for a whole month or coming off an injury, and you know all these different stats, taking a look at their sires and their dams in the past. Okay. But it looks like, a lot of the guys are going on to the favorite in this particular race. And of course, that's Medina Spirit. And of course, that's going to be the favorite You opened up at 9 to 5, probably go off somewhere around 7 or 8 to 5 if you're lucky. More than likely, with only 10 horses in the field, might even drop below that as well. The whole idea is whether he can hold out going wire to wire, which is the way that horse runs, because the Preakness is a little bit longer than the Kentucky Derby. So that's the story there. Not much to say about it. You take a look at it. If you like betting on them, I'm sure there are enough different situations you can look into that you can pick a winner for yourself if you'd like. Personally, I stay away from these type of situations. Anyway, that's the story. And let's replay once again the 3 games we have on tap today in baseball. The Cubs against the Tigers. The pros are on the Cubs. The Giants and the Pirates. The pros are on the Pirates. Cleveland against Seattle. The pros in that game are on the Seattle Mariners. So once again, thanks for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We're here Monday through Friday at noon, 12 noon Eastern Time. So if you're betting today, I wish you the best of luck. If you're betting the Preakness, I hope you pick maybe a long shot. Might be a little better deal there. Something about 7-2, 4-1. One of those horses that come in and usually do pretty good in these situations. And of course, we got the 3 games on tap for today as well. So good luck to you if you're betting. If you're not, just sit back, relax, start doing your homework. Because before long, the NFL will be around. You got to start getting ready to make your futures bets if that's the way you're going. So thanks again for listening. Have a beautiful Saturday and a very pleasant Sunday. But more importantly, if you're betting today, I hope you have a profitable Saturday as well. So until tomorrow at 9 a.m. or 11 a.m. actually, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 9 a.m. out in the Mountain Time area, I'm Chris Pardo. Thanks for listening. Talk to you again tomorrow on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. Goodbye, everybody.